He didn't know her name. Didn't know where she came from. But he handed her a bowl of soup anyway. And she sat down in silence. That's how it started. No questions. No expectations. Just one simple act of kindness. That would lead to something no one saw coming. Before we begin, tell us in the comments, have you ever helped someone without expecting anything back? And make sure to hit subscribe, because some stories remind us that one small act of kindness can lead to something incredible. Let's begin. Hello. My name's Jack Carter. I'm 42, a father of two. Ellie's 11 and already better at math than I ever was, and Max, he just turned 7 and thinks grilled cheese is a food group. Their mom passed away 4 years ago, and ever since, it's been me, them, and a rundown cafe we barely keep open. Rosie's Diner. I kept the name after my wife, because changing it felt wrong. She dreamed of the kind of place people came to for comfort, not just coffee. I kept it going, even when business dried up and the landlords circled like buzzards. Day traffic slowed to a crawl, but I found a new purpose in the quiet hours. Every night, after I put the kids to bed, I reopen the cafe for a few hours, not for profit, but to serve the leftovers. I feed whoever shows up. No ads. No signs. Just a warm plate if you're hungry and don't mind that the potatoes are from yesterday's lunch special. That's where this story begins. She came in on a Tuesday night. Tall, lean, mid-30s maybe. There was something striking about her, even beneath the oversized hoodie and tired eyes. Her hair was long, dark, slightly tangled from the wind, and her features, sharp jawline, high cheekbones, and full lips, hinted at a kind of beauty that didn't need makeup to be noticed. But she wore herself like a shadow. Moved like she was trying not to exist. There was grace in the way she carried herself, even when her shoulders curled inward. Like a dancer who'd forgotten how to dance. I asked if she wanted coffee. She didn't answer. Just nodded once. I brought her a plate, chicken and rice, some leftover cornbread, and poured her a hot cup of decaf. She took the tray with both hands and moved to the corner booth. Didn't look up once. She ate like she was afraid it might disappear. I gave her space. Just cleaned the counter, hummed a little tune, and kept an eye on her from the corner of my eye. She stayed for an hour. Never spoke. When she left, she cleared the tray and nodded again. Didn't see her for 2 nights. Then she came back. Same booth. Same silence. And just like that, it became a rhythm. Every few nights, she'd drift in just past midnight, hood up, shoulders tight, always heading for the same booth. And I always had a plate ready, whether it was Tuesday's meatloaf or Friday's mac and cheese. I started calling her Ghost Girl in my head, not out of disrespect, but because that's what she was, quiet, almost weightless, like if you blinked, she'd vanish into the night air. But she wasn't invisible. Not to me. It's funny how you start to notice the small things. The way she tucked her hair behind one ear before every bite. The way she never touched the bread but always finished the tea. The faint trace of perfume on her coat, not fancy, just clean, like lavender or something close. She didn't come to be seen. But I saw her anyway. One night, I got bold. Or maybe just curious. I brought her a cup of tea, chamomile, her usual, and sat across from her, flipping the chair around and resting my arms on the back like I used to do in high school when I wanted to pretend I was cool. She looked up for the first time. Her eyes were gray. Not dull, clear, like wet stones. Tired, yes, but not broken. There was something sharp beneath that calm. Something quiet but alive. I make a mean grilled cheese, I said, trying to smile. She just stared at me. Then, after a long pause, she spoke. Her voice was softer than I expected, but steady. You don't ask questions. I shrugged. Didn't seem like you wanted any. That almost smile tugged at her lips. Just barely. I nodded toward the tea. That one's on the house. Though, let's be honest, they're all on the house after 10 p.m. She looked down into the cup. I didn't think kindness still existed. Not the quiet kind. I didn't know what to say to that. So I didn't say anything. After a while, I stood and gave her space again. She stayed longer that night. Didn't finish the tea, but didn't rush out either. When she finally left, she paused at the door and looked back, just once. The next morning, Max asked why I was smiling while making oatmeal. I didn't answer. Because how do you explain that something small, a glance, a nod, a shared silence, can feel like the world shifting? It was a Thursday, cold, with wind sharp enough to slice through your jacket. I just finished locking up the front door for the night when I heard the bell chime again. She stood there in the entryway, rain dripping from her hood, hair damp, eyes unreadable. She didn't move until I stepped back and let the door swing open. I didn't ask why she came late. I just turned the closed sign back to open and headed for the kitchen. 15 minutes later, I slid a bowl of potato soup and a hunk of buttered bread across the table. She nodded, the kind of nod that said more than words ever could. I turned to go, but her voice stopped me. Wait. I turned. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out something, folded, worn, soft at the corners. It was a business card. She placed it face down on the table between us. I thought you should know. I glanced at it, then back at her. You sure? She nodded. I flipped it over. Thick paper. Embossed print. Marielle Langford. Langford Foundation, Deputy Chair. My stomach turned. I knew the name. Everyone did. Her father, Charles Langford, ran one of the largest philanthropic empires in the country, hospitals, grants, scholarships. Their family was magazine cover wealthy. Untouchable. You're one of them? Not anymore, she said softly. She wrapped her hands around the soup bowl like she needed its warmth more than the food. I walked away a year ago. I disappeared. And I meant to stay that way. Then why give me this? Her fingers traced the edge of the card. Because you fed me before you knew. Because you looked at me like I mattered, when I wasn't dressed up, when I wasn't speaking at galas or pretending to smile for photographs. You saw me. There was silence. Not heavy. Just honest. I leaned on the counter, watching her. What happened? She didn't answer right away. Just stirred the soup. My father tried to bury something. A scandal inside the foundation. I fought back, and he cut me off. Took my name off the board. Froze my trust. Turned the media against me. I left. I couldn't breathe in that world anymore. I nodded slowly. So you came here. To nowhere, she said. To your diner. To a plate of leftovers and a cup of tea I didn't deserve. I smiled a little. I don't check credentials before serving soup. She gave me a look, quiet, grateful, tired. Then she said something I'll never forget. I used to think kindness was currency. Something you traded for influence. But now, I think it might be the only real thing we have. After that night, something shifted. Marielle still came late, still wore that same weathered coat, still sat in her corner. But now there was a gentleness to her that hadn't been there before. Like she'd stopped bracing for the next blow. Like maybe she believed she was safe. I didn't pry. But she started talking more. Not much, never all at once, but enough. She told me about her mother, who passed when she was 12. About growing up in a mansion where silence echoed louder than laughter. About the endless functions, foundations, and false friends. How she felt more like a press release than a person. I remember being 5, she said one night, and hiding under a table at some board dinner. My father was shaking hands with senators. I was tracing the lace on the tablecloth and wishing I was invisible. "You got your wish, huh?" I said, softly. She looked at me, startled. Then nodded. Some nights she'd dry dishes while I wiped down tables. Others, she'd read stories to Max when he couldn't sleep, her voice low and soothing in the back corner booth. Ellie liked her too, called her the tea lady, and once said, "She smiles like she's sad but trying not to be." The cafe started filling up more after dark. Word got around about the late-night meals, the pay-what-you-can board-eyed nailed near the counter, the old coffee pot that never ran dry. One evening, Marielle lingered by the register and looked at the notes taped to the board, the ones where folks left what they could for others. "Prefer program," she murmured. "What?" "That's what we should call it," she said. "Leave a meal in advance. Let someone prefer kindness for someone else." I raised a brow. "We?" She smiled. "You'll need a partner if this is going to grow." I chuckled, rubbing the back of my neck. "We're barely keeping the lights on, Marielle." Her voice was calm. Firm. "Then it's time we turned on more." She pulled a folder from her bag. Inside, sketches, spreadsheets, a handwritten mission statement. All of it. Thought through. Planned. Hope on paper. "You built this?" "I dreamed it," she said. "You made me believe it could exist." I didn't say anything right away. I just looked at her, really looked at her. A woman who once walked in like a shadow now stood before me like someone holding sunlight in her hands, daring the world to believe again. 2 weeks after that conversation, she asked if she could bring someone to the cafe after hours. "Not press," she added quickly. "No cameras. Just someone who should see what you've built." I said yes, mostly because I trusted her by then, not because of who she used to be, but because of who she was when no one was watching. That night, she showed up in a clean wool coat, hair tied back, eyes sharper than I'd ever seen them. She looked taller somehow, not in height, but in purpose. The man who stepped in behind her was in his late 60s. Impeccably dressed. Silver hair. Stern face. And I recognized him instantly. Charles Langford. Her father. He scanned the diner like it was a museum, eyes landing on every flaw, the chipped tile, the crooked picture frames, the coffee machine held together with tape and faith. I braced for condescension. Instead, he turned to Marielle and said, "You used to paint that color blue on your walls when you were 8. She didn't respond. Just led him to a booth like he was any other guest. I brought them coffee. He nodded his thanks. Then, quietly, he said, "She told me you fed her. When she had nothing." "She never looked like nothing to me," I replied. He glanced at me. Not offended. More, surprised. Marielle laid the Prefer program binder between them. He opened it. Read for a while in silence. Page after page. His fingers trembled slightly on the proposal. Finally, he closed it. "How much would it take?" he asked. I blinked. "For what?" "To build 10 more. Or 50. I stared at him. "Are you serious?" "I've built hospitals," he said. "Funded art museums I've never set foot in. But none of it mattered to my daughter the way a bowl of soup did." Marielle looked down, her voice barely a whisper. "It wasn't just the soup." I cleared my throat. "Look. I didn't help her for money. I helped her because she needed it. Because I've needed it, too. And I know what it feels like when nobody notices." Mr. Langford looked at me for a long moment. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a checkbook. No headlines, he said. No name plaques. Just meals. He handed it to me. And just like that, everything changed. We signed the paperwork quietly. No fanfare. No ribbon cutting. Charles wired the funds through an anonymous foundation. Said it would be cleaner that way, less press, fewer questions. I didn't argue. The first expansion went up in a small town 2 hours north, in a place where the factory had closed down and folks were surviving on prayer and powdered milk. We found a dusty storefront on Main Street with cracked windows and good bones. Marielle came with me every day. Paintbrush in hand, hair tied up, covered in plaster and dust and stubborn optimism. She'd hum while we painted, laugh when the fryer spit oil at us, curse like a trucker when the plumbing burst, twice. I loved every second of it. We hired 2 locals to run the kitchen. Created a pay-it-forward board just like mine. Kept the same rule, no questions asked, and no one leaves hungry. People came. At first out of curiosity, then out of need, and eventually out of trust. It worked. By the 3rd month, 2 more locations were already being renovated, one in a city shelter district, the other in a flood-damaged coastal town where most restaurants had given up. We called the network Rosie's at night. And the Prefer program? It took off like a spark in dry grass. One night, after a particularly long shift, Marielle and I sat on the back steps of the original café. The sky was clear. The coffee was lukewarm. She had paint on her cheek, and I didn't tell her because I liked how real she looked. She leaned her shoulder into mine. I used to think I had to disappear to find peace, she said. But maybe I just needed to be somewhere small enough to be seen again. I smiled. Well, this place may be small, but it's got a pretty powerful gravity. She looked at me, soft and serious. You gave me space to heal. Without asking for anything. That kind of kindness, you can't fake it. I didn't think I was doing anything special. You were, she said. We sat there in silence after that. Not awkward, just full. The kind of silence where nothing needs fixing. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel like a man who'd lost everything. I felt like a man building something bigger than himself. And maybe, just maybe, I wasn't building it alone. The story was bound to get out eventually. We'd managed to keep things quiet through the first few cafe launches, but you can't open 5 new locations in under a year without catching someone's eye. Especially not when the buildings are full of people paying forward meals with handwritten notes and warm soup. It started with a small food blogger, a young guy who stumbled across the Prefer board and wrote a heartfelt piece about the diner that feeds hope after midnight. It got shared. Then reshared. Then syndicated. 2 weeks later, a call came in from a national morning show. They wanted to send a crew. Interview me, Marielle, maybe even her father. I didn't like it. Not because I feared attention, but because I feared what it might do to the quiet good we'd built. Marielle sat across from me at the booth where she used to hide behind her tea. Now she held herself tall, hands folded calmly. They'll dig, you know, I said. Find out who you were. What happened? She nodded. Let them. You sure? Her eyes met mine. I used to be afraid of being seen for the wrong reasons. Now, I'm not afraid of being seen. Because this version of me, the one who wipes tables and reads bedtime stories to Max and brews tea for strangers, this is who I really am. I didn't say anything at first. Just watched her. The light caught the curve of her cheek, soft and warm. Her hair was pulled back in a simple braid. No makeup. No armor. Just her. You know, I said slowly, I never thanked you for saving this place. She smiled. You saved me first. We didn't agree to the interview right away. We talked it over. A lot. With Charles, with the staff, even with Ellie and Max, who both thought it was the coolest thing in the world that we might be on TV. Eventually, we said yes, but on one condition. No suits. No makeup teams. No scripts. They could come if they wanted to see what kindness looks like after dark. But they had to see it as it really was. They agreed. The day of the interview, I wore my cleanest flannel shirt. Marielle wore her old boots and a prefer apron. And when they asked her what had brought her here, she didn't flinch. I lost everything, she said, looking into the camera. But this place gave me something better than a second chance. It gave me a reason to believe in people again. I don't know what hit me harder, the way her voice cracked when she said it, or the way she reached for my hand without even thinking. In that moment, I didn't care about networks or ratings or headlines. Because the woman who used to sit in the corner not looking anyone in the eye, she was looking at me. A week after the interview aired, everything exploded. The video went viral. Messages poured in, letters, donations, volunteers. People sent stories of their own midnight kindnesses. Kids emptied piggy banks to prefer someone else's sandwich. A woman in Ohio started a school club called the Prefer Project. A man in Michigan drove 3 hours just to leave a $100 bill with a note that said, "Because someone once fed me when I hadn't eaten in 2 days." It was overwhelming, beautiful, but heavy. And with attention came pressure. One night, I was elbow-deep in dishes when Marielle walked into the kitchen, holding her phone like it was burning her hand. "My father wants to expand faster," she said. "National scale. Major donors. Press events. He's already hiring staff." I dried my hands slowly. "And what do you want?" She didn't answer at first. Then, quietly, "I want to breathe. I want to keep this real." We sat in the storage room, surrounded by bags of flour and old folding chairs, and just exhaled. She leaned her head against my shoulder. "You think we're going to lose it?" she asked. "The heart of it?" "No," I said. "Because the heart isn't the brand. It's the people. It's us." She didn't say anything, but I felt her hand slide into mine. Later that night, as I was walking her out to her car, the rain came suddenly, hard, cold, soaking us in seconds. We both ran for the awning, laughing like idiots, out of breath. She tucked her wet hair behind her ears, looked at me, eyes full of rain and something else. "I used to think storms ruined everything," she said. I took a step closer. Now I think they just wash away what doesn't matter." I reached up, brushing a drop of water from her cheek. She didn't pull away. "Marielle," I said, "I don't know what's ahead. Maybe this whole thing will grow bigger than we can handle. Maybe we'll fall flat on our faces. But if you're with me—" "I'm already with you," she said, barely above a whisper. And then she kissed me. There was no music. No crowd. Just us and the rain and the sound of something finally, quietly, falling into place. 2 months later, we found ourselves sitting at a long, glossy table in a high-rise conference room that smelled like lemon polish and money. Across from us, suits. Polished smiles. A presentation deck with a title that read, "Rosie's at Night, National Franchise Strategy Proposal." They'd seen the Prefer story. The viral video. The late-night diners springing up in 3 more states. Now they wanted to scale the kindness. "Think bigger," one of them said, flipping to a slide with revenue projections. "Think airports. Think college towns. Think transactional," Marielle interrupted, her voice calm but sharp. The room went still. She looked at me. I gave a small nod. "We'd talked about this. A lot. This was never about monetizing charity," she said. "It started because a man saw a hungry woman and didn't ask for her resume first. One of the execs tried to salvage the pitch. Of course. But this is an opportunity to reach thousands more. With a logo and a slogan? I cut in. Or with a warm plate and a little dignity? There was an awkward silence. Another executive leaned forward. Look. You've created something real. Something powerful. We want to help it grow. You want to own it, I said plainly. We're not selling. They blinked, confused. Marielle stood. We'll expand. But on our terms. Through the foundation. One diner at a time. Where it's needed. With local owners. Real people. Not a brand. A community. And just like that, the meeting ended. Later that evening, we sat outside the cafe again. Ellie and Max were inside playing cards with a volunteer named Jonah who'd started as a dishwasher and now trained staff for new locations. The sky was streaked orange and gold, and the smell of roasted onions drifted through the air. You sure we did the right thing? I asked her. She leaned into me. You fed me with no plan. No angle. Just kindness, she said. Now we're feeding hundreds. You think we need a boardroom to prove that's working? I smiled. Guess not. She looked at me, serious now. Jack, this isn't just your story anymore. Or mine. This thing we've built, it's got legs. It's got people. It's got you, I said. That's all I need to know. A year to the day after she first walked into my diner, wet, silent, unseen, Marielle stood beside me at the grand opening of the 10th Rosie's at night. It was in a former bus depot, repurposed and glowing under warm strings of light. Someone played an old upright piano in the corner. There were blankets folded in crates by the door, and the smell of lentil stew wafted out into the street like a welcome sign. No red ribbon. No VIPs. Just regular people, and a wall filled with notes on the prefer board, thank yous, prayers, apologies, and tiny promises scribbled in crayon or marker or pencil stub. Marielle stepped up to the counter and handed a bowl of soup to a shivering teenage girl with no shoes and bright green hair. The girl smiled at her. It wasn't a miracle. It was something better, it was real. I watched from across the room, hands in my pockets, heart full and quiet. It still amazes me. This started with leftovers. With grief and exhaustion and 2 kids who needed pancakes at 6 a.m., and a dad who didn't know how to fix the world but figured he could keep a stove running. It started with a woman who sat in the corner and didn't speak. Now it's a movement. No marketing. No slogans. Just a whisper passed hand to hand. Go to Rosie's. They'll take care of you. That night, after the rush died down, we walked home. She held my hand. I still get butterflies when she does that. At the house, Ellie was asleep on the couch with Max curled up beside her, a half-eaten grilled cheese between them. We stood there in the doorway for a long moment, watching our little world breathe. Then she said something that stopped me cold. You know what my father told me yesterday? What's that? He said he's proud of me. She smiled. But more than that, he said he's finally proud of something he didn't build himself. I kissed her forehead. I'm proud of you every night. She looked up at me. Do you think people will remember any of this? I nodded. Not because it's loud. But because it's true. Outside, the wind passed through the trees. A quiet echo. The same kind I heard in the diner that first night. The kind that carries on, even when no one is listening. Kindness doesn't need volume. It just needs to be real. Thank you for watching the video to the end. If you liked it, please like it, leave a comment below the video, and subscribe so you don't miss more impressive and interesting stories from people's lives.